To Be Hero X has been absolutely killing it lately, and honestly, if you ask me, I think it's got a real shot at Anime of the Year. Now, you could attribute that to its character design or its incredible writing, but for me, the most compelling part is probably its power system. Each power feels so unique to the user, and it's got fun, clever drawbacks that add real depth to all the characters. Or, I guess, subtracts real depth in some of the characters' cases. Looking at Firm Man over there. But anyway, with a power system this complex, it's kind of easy to get lost in the chaos, which is why today we're talking To Be Hero X's power system explained. But before we get into any of that, if you like this kind of analysis content, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any of this anime goodness. To Be Hero X's power system is based on trust, and more specifically, how many people trust you. So you go around and you build up trust with enough people, and eventually you'll gain a power. But the interesting thing is that the power isn't exactly what you want. Instead, it's based on how people see you. So, for example, if people see you as a travel blogger like they did with Moon, you might gain the ability to teleport because they see you in all these different places and think you have easy access to all those places. Now, everyone in To Be Hero X is born with a trust value, and this is how you can track how many people have put their faith in you. It appears as a little number that projects over your wrist, and the more people trust you, the more that number rises, and the more people lose their faith in you, the more it drops. This trust value is incredibly important because not only does it determine whether or not you have an ability and how powerful that ability is, but it also affects your social status, as people with lower trust values have trouble finding jobs and living a regular life. Now, the strength of the power that you get is directly linked to your trust value. That is to say, how many people have put their trust in you. And so, while it's important to grow your following as much as possible and gain as many people's trust as possible so that your power can increase in strength, there's a caveat, as if people lose trust in you, your power will decrease in strength. And even more so, if people die, they can't offer trust anymore. So you'll lose that trust value from those people. We see this in the case of Lucky Cyan, who originally had the trust of everyone on that plane that was crashing because they wanted the baby to survive, and so she did. But now that she was the only survivor, she lost all of the trust value from the people who had died. And her new first trust came from the reporter that found her instead. Now let's get into what powers you can actually get with a high trust value. For starters, every single hero will get the basics of increased strength, speed, and durability, but that's a slight increase. From there, their powers can branch off into just about anything, really. From classic powers like flight, teleportation, super speed, to more niche powers like luck manipulation and the ability to control people through music, to really basic seeming powers that have been taken to extremes like extreme durability or the ability to use a particular weapon really well. Anything, as long as it fits within the public perception of you, will be able to become a power. Now, trust is also unique because along with the power, you start to take on every single aspect that the people who trust you see in you. So, for example, with Firm Man, his power was to stand tall, and people saw that he never really bent the knee. So, he actually lost the ability to sit down or lay down. He was always forced to stand. You also gain different physical and mental attributes depending on how people see you. We see this with Lin Ling when he starts to take on the physical appearance of Nice. He also starts to develop Nice's OCD because everyone sees him as Nice. We also see this with Ghostblade, who lost the ability to speak because his followers saw him as someone incredibly proficient with the blade, but also someone who never made a noise. Now, another example of how trust can change things is the power that you get doesn't necessarily stay the power that you have. It can adapt over time based on how people see you. For example, Moon originally had the ability to teleport wherever she wanted. But once she starts dating Nice, the fans wanted to see her and Nice together all the time. And so her teleportation ability changed from being able to go wherever she wanted to only being able to teleport to Nice's side. Another drawback that comes with trust values is that not only can it take the power that you've gotten and twist it into something that maybe you don't even want anymore, but it can also make regular things incredibly difficult to do if your followers don't want you to do them. For example, Lin Ling, when he's trying to save who he thinks is Moon, is trying to get to her, but his followers want him to stay safe because they still see him as nice. So they tell him he can't go, and he physically becomes unable to go for a while. Now, he is able to eventually resist this, and that might just be because he's Lin Ling and not nice. We see him start to revert back to Lin Ling, so it's possible that the only reason he could resist is he wasn't who everyone thought he was. This could imply that other heroes wouldn't be able to do the same thing, with the exception of maybe Ysul originally. Now, having a high trust value can be incredibly powerful and basically turn someone into a god. So organizations started popping up to try to disperse this trust value amongst a bunch of different people instead of it all focusing into one person like it did in the past. Trust values really started to skyrocket around the time when FOMO was created, which is the social media app that we see used in 2B Hero X. And this is what caused a lot of heroes to be able to pop up and become basically godlike. Now, trust isn't the only power system in 2B Hero X. No, we have its antithesis as well, which is fear, which basically embodies all of the negative emotions that someone can have about someone. Now, similar to trust, fear can change people as well. It's normally expelled from individuals in the form of these dark particles that float around, but there's a limit to how much fear a person can expel, and once that limit is passed, the person starts to corrupt and change. Now, these fear particles will latch onto the nearest person and start to corrupt them, and this corruption gives a variety of changes, starting with mental deterioration, and then for citizens who seem to be more affected by it, they'll actually go through a physical transformation as well, causing them to kind of grow into these grotesque monsters that exude fear particles. Heroes aren't immune to fear either, so they'll also corrupt if they're bombarded with too much of it, but the changes for them is different than the changes for a regular civilian. First of all, they seem to maintain a bit more of their cognitive aspects, so they're able to reason better. However, their reasoning is corrupted into a darker version. We see this with Boa, who was being bombarded with fear particles after losing to Queen, and she wanted to take revenge because she thought Queen cheated. So Boa ends up going through this transformation where she goes from just being jealous and bitter to wanting to actually hurt Queen and ends up fighting her instead. We also see this with Enlighter, who originally just wanted to expose people who he thought were frauds. But the fear particles start to infest him, and he starts to target different heroes to try to break them down fundamentally and make them lose their following. Now, in an effort to target certain heroes, the Spotlight organization has started to use fear value amplifiers in different attacks, and these amplifiers were able to put a regular citizen on the same level as Nice, who was one of the most popular heroes at the time. And this emphasizes just how powerful fear actually is. Another aspect of fear is that it corrupts and weakens powers built through trust. So a hero who is being infested with fear will become weaker on the trust side, but may gain more power through fear instead. On top of that, another thing that makes fear so dangerous is that because the particles corrupt people, you can't exactly touch it without significant risk of being corrupted yourself. Now, so far, we only know of one material that isn't affected by either trust or fear, and that's a specific metal alloy that Lowly's armor is actually made out of. See, it was found at an alien crash site, and we learn that it's able to dispel and contain both trust and fear. We don't know much about this metal, but what we do know is it seems to be one of the most effective ways to combat people corrupted by fear because you don't risk being corrupted yourself. And with that, that's everything that we know about the 2B Hero X power system. But now I want to hear from you guys. Do you guys enjoy this power system? And what do you think the mysterious Hero X's power is? And lastly, what do you think your power would be if you got one through trust? Let me know down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell because I post a new video about anime every single week. But until then, have a nice day.